Got a lovely painting here from Patricia Hill. Patricia's used the photographs that I put on Facebook to compose and make a painting. And she's done a fantastic little job. She's put some beautiful wispy yellowy clouds drifting down from the top, finding their way and sitting just above the horizon. And in between those there's this beautiful blue, and it's the accurate blue that we see in the sky. So she's been able to use her impressionist view on things, but woven a beautiful sky out of that. And down from there she's got a nice headland, again going into a mauve, which is exactly the right colour. And coming forward from there, she's gone directly into the beautiful blue of the ocean. And put some tumbling waves in there, and then straight into the sand. All the colours, Patricia, are perfect. Well done, love. A couple of tips, Patricia, to improve your painting. What you could do is use the notion of reflections, right? You've got a beautiful beach there, but reflections mesmerise people. They wonder how they're done, and they really give another depth and another meaning to the painting. So think about reflections. Think also about, particularly under the children running, think also about the scale you're using there. You've got the birds very much in the foreground, and so we're having to go through the birds to find the children. I would like to see those children a little bit stronger in terms of the swimming costume, maybe a red or a yellow in there. Those colours pop, and your eye will go past the birds into the figures quicker. So we need to bring those figures out a little bit more. So think about some stronger colours in there. Not in the foreground, not in the seagulls, but in the figures. Justin Dobbs has done a painting of Yosemite Valley, and Justin, I've been to that very spot. I walked that spot exactly about 4 years ago when I did a TV show there. There's a bus pull in there, and you can stop there and look back up the valley, and you can walk down over the bank down there across the rocks. Now I know that spot, and it's a beautiful spot, and I took photographs there, and I remember that, and what a great job you've done of it. Listen, you've shown exactly the landmarks that we need to know and remember when we go there. You've shown those conifer trees as they stand, they're searching, they're soaring upwards into the sky. Your colours are great. The reflection in the water, you've done a great job there. What would I change, or what would I do, or how would I help you there? I think you could lighten up the foreground a bit more. I think you could give a little bit more verve, a little bit more spring to the paddock over the other side of the stream. I think you could break in that tree line a little bit more, some random ones that are higher than the other ones. Give it a bit more edge, a bit more randomness in there. Your sky is very, very good, and the rendition of the mountains is excellent. Your colours are great. Maybe give it a little bit more twinkle, a little bit more sparkle. So go into those highlights a bit more. You're sitting at about a value of 9 or 10, about 30 feet away on the other side of the river. You should really be bringing that 9 or 10 back on this side of the river somehow, with maybe a sprinkle of flowers up the front, or some leaves hanging from one side, some ripples in the water at the very front there. That'd energise that foreground. I've got a painting here from Virginia Nickel. Virginia, I've got to say to you, listen, you've done a very commendable job. You've taken those photographs from Facebook and you've turned them into a great little painting. What I really like about your painting is the warmth you've got in it. You've been able to put your own feeling about a sky into the painting. And of course we know that the sky dominates everything that happens after that. What happens in the sky has got to take its way down through the other parts of the painting. But by going into the warm side straight away, you're immediately making a statement about the sea. You're saying, I'm going to see this as a warm event, not a cool event, because most people see it as a cool event. Blue, greens and so on, but you're getting in the warms. You've done a very good job of that string of rocks out there in the water as well. You've got water churning around, and what a lovely green that is. It's almost like a sap blue green. It's a beautiful colour though. Your foreground, you've got reflections in there. The sand colour's great. It's a wet sand look. What would I do? Finish it. Put some seagulls in there, maybe a figure. And what colour would go well on a figure? Well, you've got browns in there. Why wouldn't you go with, say, a yellow? A boy with a yellow hat on. with a yellow shirt, two boys walking along there. There's some seagulls swooping around in that nice vacant foreground you've got there, down low, charging up into the sky. And that would really turn that painting into something that everyone would want to look at and maybe buy. I've got a painting here from Fabiola Robichaud, and I hope I got that surname right. I apologise if it's wrong. Fabiola, look, you've done a pretty good painting there. Love the colours. The blue and the green in the sky is quite unique and different. By setting that colour there, you are setting what's going to happen next. And you've gone down into the water with a lovely blue. But you've broken both those big areas up with some light hazy clouds, with some light turns of the water. You've painted in a very soft way, rather than a hard way. You like to use your brush in a way that is sort of passive rather than energetic. And that's fine. And then at the front you put those sandpipers in there, just in front of that last wave as it rolls up the beach. And that's a lovely way of looking at things too, I must say that. What would I do to improve? I think one thing, the headlands you've got coming out from the right-hand side is a little too green. Remember what happens when you look at something in the distance. Those colours are muted. Stop and think for one moment. If you see a red boat in front of you, with a red sail, leaving right in front of you, and then after about 500 metres out in the water, what colour is that red sail? It's not quite as red, is it? When it goes another 500 metres, it goes into a purple, because blue takes over. The effect of distance starts to take over that colour, that local colour. It's the water particles and the dust in the air and so on. It interferes with the true colour. So you need to remember that when you're doing something like a headland that's maybe 300 to 400 metres away. At the same time, you need to increase the amount of detail you have at the front. So some little pebbles in that sand there in the front, some little ripple lines up there for the rivulets as the water rolls up the beach. Those little things give you a sense of order in your painting. They tell you that you've got a foreground, you've got a middle distance and background. So try and work on that in your paintings from now on. A little bit more order as you go from where you are to the horizon. So go out and have a look at the beach next time and have a close look at what happens there. I've got a painting here from Toni, and it's T-O-N-I, not Y. And Toni's done a pretty sharp painting from the photographs we put on Facebook. But what I like about Toni's work is that she's not messing around. She's saying to me, or to the viewer, I'm going to paint something that I really like and really want to dominate. A seagull in full flight. Now there's nothing wrong with that. I would dare say that Toni may have done a bit of portrait painting in the past, because she's pretty good at that big subject area. She knows how to control it. Her colours in there are spot on, the darks are dark and the lights are light and the shape is perfect. So that tells me that Toni has got a pretty good hand at drawing and at analysing proportions and putting them in place in the right order over an area. That being said, behind what she's done is a very commendable setting. She's used grey as a welding and holding colour within the sky and in the headland. She's got all those parts in order. She knows what happens to colour when you recede in distance. She knows what happens to the foreground when you approach, when it comes closer to you. She's using the lights and the darks very well. And she put a bucket in there, so she's telling a story about a seagull taking an interest in a bucket. And what seagull doesn't take an interest in a bucket? Because they think there's something in there. And so that's why that seagull is hovering around the bucket. Toni, what would I do? Listen, your understanding of aerial perspective is great. I'd perhaps push the seagull a bit more. You've got a light source behind the seagull, and the seagull is hovering there, but it's not really grabbing me hard enough. I want some more light on that seagull. I'd like to see a bit more colour in the seagull. I'd like to see just a bit more hard work in there to tell us that that's what it is. At the moment, I'm looking really at the foreground and that patio area there where there's rocks and the bucket is. But really the story is about the bucket and the seagull. So get back up in that seagull and give it a little bit more work up there. Push the colours more, push the highlights and darks more. I've got a painting here from Blas Romanillos, Manila Bay Sunset. And I'll tell you what, it is a real sunset. That yellow and the orange is exactly how I see it as well. And you've got those little shuffles of cloud sort of draping across horizontally to break up that yellow. But it also picks up the sun's rays, because on the lower side of those clouds you get that sort of little edge of yellow. It goes from an orange into a sharp yellow. And I think you've done a fantastic job, Blas. And I really look forward to seeing another painting from you. What else would I do to the painting? Listen, you haven't finished it. You've got to put something in there. A painting should tell a story, not just make people feel relaxed, but also entertain them with a bit more in there. So you could put some figures in there, some seagulls, a boat, a jetty. There's a lot of things you could put in there. So don't just stop at that sunset. And of course, you've got to remember that the sunset has that foreground, and you can use all those colours in the foreground. So there's your double whammy. Remember, it's like a mirror. So that foreground would be moist, there'd be sand, there'd be pebbles, there'd be some sticks in there, there may be a bucket, there may be a couple of seagulls walking around in there, all things that's going to energise and give that painting that extra dimension, which is what you really should go for. I want to thank you for submitting those paintings to What Do You Think, Bob? Remember, feel free to send me your paintings. I'll have a look at them and I'll tell you what I think. I won't hold any punches back. So there you go.